Bruh, get the hell out of my seat. What the hell you doing here? Anyways, Q, the Overwatch gameplay now.
Hello there.
Howdy, it's your least favorite YouTuber here. Don't lie to me. So, with the advent of Disney Plus, Star Wars has seen a lot more EU or Legends style content in the new Disney canon through the medium of TV series and specials. So today I'm looking at 4 different Star Wars series and specials released exclusively on Disney Plus. So now if you'll excuse me. It was good. I mean, it had a lot of filler, but at least the filler is interesting to a degree. So let's start with some overall thoughts. Firstly, I think the show could have ended on episode 15, where we could have had an interesting cliffhanger with no knowing of them surviving, leading to a bigger demand for a second season. I do also really love the fact that the clones destroy Kamino.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme, every stanza kind of rhymes with the last one.
The show did have quite a bit of filler, especially during the middle, and most of that filler just had 1 or 2 major plot developments, and a cameo usually. Thankfully, not so much as fan service, but a bit more involved in the plot of the story. I will say at least, the filler is interesting to a degree, with an exception or two. Now let's dive a bit deeper. As previously mentioned, the filler was solid, surprisingly, with the exception of the episodes Decommission, Infested, and to a much lesser degree, Common Ground. Decommissioned focuses on the Marquez sisters from Season 7 of the Clone Wars. But slightly interesting to a degree, of course, to see the droids help the clones towards the end. Infested is the textbook definition of filler, with a plot focusing on about two locations which meanders with no consequence after it all, and no stakes to be seen. This episode primarily focuses on a crime boss and his dealings with Spikes and what could have been a slightly interesting heist episode plot, where they need to steal a spice to start a war between the two groups, but alas, it isn't. And finally, we have the last episode of this section, Common Ground, which centers around the group helping a former separatist senator escape the clutches of the Empire. But the only mention of opposing ideologies from the Clone Wars is by Echo, with a few lines at the start of the episode on their way to the planet. I will also mention some of the cameos throughout the show. There's 3 main groups: unnecessary, cool but not needed, and sensible. Let's start with the sensible ones first. These are cameos that make sense given the context of the series. These include some obvious ones. We have Captain Rex, we have Cut McQuain, the deserter from Season 2 of the Clone Wars, Commander Gregor, the episode adds some more context, and Grand Moff Tarkin, which kind of makes sense as a given. Then there are some cool but very unneeded. These contain Cad Bane, Fennec Shand, Bib Fortuna. Again, the episode adds some more context. Harrison Dula, Kanan Jarrus, and Commander Scorch. These are solid cameos, just not needed. And finally, we have some cameos that we didn't need at all, but we got. These 2 are being the aforementioned Marquez sisters and the Pikes. These did not need to happen. Honestly, my problems with the last 2 are these could have been way more interesting. We could have, instead of the Marquez sisters, gotten something like Hondo Anaka. Overall, a good show. Maybe check it out. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. The animation was stellar though, especially during the siege of Kamino. Oh boy, this is the big one. The show everyone has been hyping up as some of the best Star Wars content in years. And I have to say, I strongly disagree. Let's explain why. Let's first start off by saying I am discussing Season 2 exclusively here. Season 1 was way worse, in my opinion, and also I watched the first 3 episodes like a year ago, so I don't think I have any right to be watching them without rewatching them, and I'm gonna feel like I need to rewatch the entire show. And I only really liked 1 episode there, so it would have been just a lot more of me just saying, this is bad, I dislike this. Because the only episode I liked there was episode 8. So let's talk about the episodes here I did enjoy. Well, mostly the filler. Specifically episodes 9, 10, 14, and the finale episode, episode 16, which is the only non-filler episode, surprisingly. This is kind of the opposite of the Bad Batch, where I find the filler much better than the plot-driven episodes with big boy cameos. Of course, with the exception of the Boba Fett episode. I don't really think anybody could dislike that episode. But the filler episodes allow the show to take a slower pace and show us what makes Din Djarin tick, what drives him forward. Rather than the other episodes where they focus either on heavy action, like episode 12, moral debacles, and cameos like episode 15, or both in episodes 11 and 13, respectively. These episodes don't work for me, as the morality debates don't do anything. No one's viewpoint is changed, no one's opinion is altered. The action is just fine, but tends to rely on Din Djarin just getting hit 50 times in the armor and coming out unscathed with maybe a few scuffles of dirt on him. And 5 platoons of troopers dead just behind him. And the cameos. Boba Fett works for me, as we can finally explain him and Jango's actual heritage to Mandalore, especially with the new type of Mandalorian being Foundling, introduced in the series, allows for some great world building on those 2 characters, I guess. Bo-Katan's episode combines heavy action I dislike with a ton of fan service, with most of the episode being like, oh, look at how cool she is, don't you remember the Clone Wars? And Ahsoka's is taking a character I love and making her a generic stoic Jedi, with her saying she can't train Grogu because he has an attachment. Like, almost all of the remaining Jedi by this point have strong attachments. Ahsoka to Anakin, Ezra to literally like anyone he meets because he sucks. And Luke has attachment to so many characters from the original trilogy like Han, Luke, Leia, Chewbacca, R2-D2. It's not even funny. But that's wrong. Speaking of Grogu, affectionately called Baby Yoda, he's great. I actually have no real complaints, besides the murder of multiple eggs of unfertilized embryos. But he's good. He doesn't make me want to do this. But he also doesn't make me want to do this. Overall, I would just check out episodes 9, 10, 14, 16. I'd give this a 6 out of 10. Let's hope the Book of Boba Fett is way better.
A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
As previously stated, I was surprised by this one. Its 50-minute runtime made this easily digestible, and it actually had some pretty fun moments. This is a great use of fan service, allowing for these small moments of characters interacting in ways that would never be possible. Some good examples being the triple hello there.
Hello there.
Both Hans shooting first.
You want to shoot first? After you!
Even got a return of classic LEGO Star Wars death sound. And oh no. Just see for yourself.
Ba 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 ba. Who's Supreme Leader? I'm Supreme Leader.
On the flip side, Finn, Poe, Rose, and Chewbacca are setting up a Life Day celebration, allowing for some great in-jokes between characters once the party gets really big. Also, they... Oh my god! Anyways, the holiday message is a bit half-baked, but come on, it's just a simple, fun holiday special for the family. They also elected to change the modern Lucasfilm logo, and it looks pretty cool. No complaints here, I'd give this a 9 out of 10. If you like Star Wars or have younger kids into Star Wars, I would definitely recommend this. So, the Bad Batch arc, and yes, I'm covering all these arcs separately. I do think the arc has aged a bit better because of the series, but I digress. Overall, the first episode's a bit boring, and honestly, Wrecker seems more annoying here than I do remember him being in, like, Bad Batch. But okay. The second episode is easily the best. I do quite like how Rex and Obi-Wan both know about Padme and Anakin's secret marriage. Otherwise, it's fine. This is like the one they got most of their trailer shots from. Episode 3 is honestly kind of boring again, with a village coming together to fight the Separatists. I feel like we've seen this like 5 different times throughout the Clone Wars. Finally, episode 4 is alright, but the will he, won't he betray them with Echo is kind of annoying. It's one of my personal pet peeves in most media. But Anakin's outburst at Admiral Trench was great. Similarly to their show, this arc is a 7 out of 10. Moving on. Okay, the Martez sisters arc. I was so tempted to skip this utter garbage, but it's canon, and I feel like I should elaborate more since they are in the Bad Batch. Let's go. The entire first episode just meanders for 24 minutes with bad introductions and bad just everything. The only thing I liked in this episode is when Ahsoka is covering up and says, "My older brother taught me," in reference to Anakin.
Whoa, where did you learn to fight like that?
My older brother taught me.
It's a nice moment, I'll give it that, just it doesn't have enough to save the entire episode because it's all trash. Episode 2, more meandering, terrible decision making by most, if not all, the characters. And why are the damn Pikes in everything now? Just why? It makes them seem like they are the only other crime family in the galaxy other than the Hutt Cartel. It just infuriates me beyond belief. Oh, this episode. All I need to say, beginning of the episode, they're in a prison cell. They escape midway through, by the end, they're back in the cell. Only thing I noticed is that the two, goons who sit in Sid's place in Bad Batch escape in a cell here. Didn't notice that, but Bad Batch wasn't out by the time, I wouldn't have remembered. Moving on, finally we're at episode 4, and is it awful? Ahsoka is actually terrible here. I genuinely dislike her more here than in the movie. And she's terrible in the movie. Oh, and Rafa Martez murders an innocent Trandoshan.
See ya, pal.
Is this supposed to be a heroic moment? Like, the Trandoshan was doing this because they were interfering with their job. And Rafa Martez was being a bit of a Karen here. Oh, and they do the oh-so-great liar reveal trope, with Ahsoka being a Jedi. I despise that trope. Just imagine for a second how good this arc could have been if it focused on Ahsoka trying to find a place in the universe, starting on Coruscant and just moving through the galaxy, in order for her to end up joining back up with the Jedi for the Siege of Mandalore. Overall, I give this arc a 2 out of 10. It gets a point because of the small things I liked, and mind you, these are minuscule. Moving on. This is what people should be talking about when referring to the best Star Wars content in recent memory. Because this right here is pure gold. The Siege of Mandalore arc is amazing. It's stellar. So the first episode starts off with, no joke, Anakin committing a war crime. More seriously, I love how Anakin does the same plan as Obi-Wan did in the movie.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme. Every stanza kind of rhymes with the last one.
Shortly after this, Anakin and Obi-Wan go on to a Venator, where Ahsoka contacts them for the first time in maybe a year.
Alright, Adam. What's so important you brought us all the way? Kept you waiting, huh?
Then, a bit later on in this episode, they have a bit of a reference to the race up the mountain between Anakin and Ahsoka in the movie, but this time it's between Rex and Ahsoka down to the surface of Mandalore. Overall, this is a pretty good episode, and it's still yet the worst of this arc it has to offer.
This is where the fun begins.
Episode 2. Oh, this is just so good. Maul's pleas and debates are so interesting. Knowing what happens, we know he's fully right. We also get to see the full Siege of Mandalore, the amazing mocap to the Ahsoka versus Maul fight, and just so much more in this episode. Just an amazing episode, probably my favorite of this arc and of Season 7, that's not the best. Episode 3. Where to begin? First off, this episode takes place during Ahsoka's point of view of Order 66, and it's just amazing. Even when Ahsoka and Maul hear Anakin turning to Vader, it's so good. Oh, and it gets better. After this, we get to see Ahsoka fighting off against the clones once Order 66 is first issued, and it's just so good. Not my favorite episode of this arc, not at all, but this episode was just amazing. But episode 4, this right here is some of the best Star Wars content in years. And some of the best Star Wars content, period. Maul's decimation of the reactor, Rex and Jesse's exchanges, not even just Rex and Jesse, just anyone's exchanges in this episode are amazing. And most importantly, the free fall just sets this episode in stone as an amazing episode. And the final scene is so great. It takes the visual storytelling and uses it in a near perfect way. I will always advocate for visual storytelling when it can be used, and this is properly used. Before you watch this final scene, I advise you to please watch Season 7's final arc at least. There was a spoiler warning earlier. I spoil a lot, but please watch this. I advise you. It's way better for you to see it on your own than me showing it to you in a video. 3, 2, 1, penguins. even knowing Maul, Rex, and Ahsoka had to make it out alive, it was still a bit tense on my first watch. Can't say that about my rewatch, or for a lot of people. I understand if it had come out a few years earlier, this would have been a 10 out of 10. But I digress. This is some of the best of the Clone Wars, of Star Wars, of television. It's intense, it's somber, it's action-packed, it's awe-inspiring. This is something I could recommend to anyone who likes good media in the slightest. If you haven't seen this, and you're still here, I must ask, watch it. I give this a 9 out of 10. It's not a perfect piece of media. Nothing is, nothing ever will be. But it stands as a perfect finale for Star Wars The Clone Wars. Overall, I liked Season 7 to a degree, but it earns itself a grand total of 6 out of 10. Whilst the last arc is utterly amazing, and I do enjoy the first arc, especially after having seen the Bad Batch now, it's not good overall. But this final season does pretty much encompass Clone Wars as a whole. The first arc is pretty much your kind of normal filler stuff that you can skip, but you don't need to. It's some dumb fun. This could be like an episode like Cat and Mouse. It's not really important at all. It's just a fun episode. Second arc is pretty much like most of the bad stuff of the show. Like most Jar Jar episodes, surprisingly. Just some of the bad stuff. And the last arc represents some of the best Star Wars content in general, like most of the greatest arcs of the show. Or not even arcs, just episodes. The season surprisingly encompasses the entire show really well. Overall, I would say I came back from this experience pretty positively. Would I recommend all these? To simply put it, no. But that's fine. Some of these are great. I do implore you to check them out. If you're still here and I just spoiled for pretty decent pieces of media. But I digress. Anyways, I'll see y'all in the next one. And no, I'm not doing the movies.